This is going to be a tough decision for any young officer to make. And he's got a choice. On one end, he's got his sacred oath that he wants to follow. He wants to, and it just kills him when he doesn't follow that oath. It will kill him, it will finish him off if he breaks that oath. And on the other hand, especially if that young officer has a family and kids, he's got his career sitting right in someone else's hands. And if you do not play along, then you're going to be punished, and that's going to be the end of your career, okay? Depending on how desperate the upper police management is to keep you silent.
Tupac knew if he was going to be killed, he knew it was going to be somebody from the death row organization.
Tupac kind of falls into my left arm.
A music icon killed in our streets.
I'm asking what happened, who shot you?
Fox 5 News investigates theories of revenge, corruption, and rap's most powerful.
It leads back to
Who Killed Tupac? Thursday on Fox 5 News at 10.
Las Vegas, Nevada. The most popular hip-hop star on the planet, Tupac Shakur, bleeds out in a BMW, victim of a drive-by shooting. 6 months later, rival rapper Biggie Smalls is brutally gunned down on the streets of LA in an eerily similar fashion. Both murders are forever linked and currently unsolved. Who killed Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls?
They'd have killed him right in front of the Pope.
Some say they were murdered by their closest allies.
They put a hit out on Pac for $1 million.
Were they truly victims of an East Coast, West Coast rap rivalry? Or was that just a cover for something more sinister?
guns, drugs, money. This is a really bad formula here.
Anybody that ever put their hands on me, I'll tell you, might not get you that day, but you're gonna get got.
Well, Reggie Wright is taboo, you know, and he's part of it.
The Compton killings that occurred thereafter after Tupac was shot was just a diversion to make, you know, general public, law enforcement believe it was a blood crip thing. When indeed, I mean, it was all orchestrated.
I have never been the type of guy that go and put any type of work, would never get no car and do nothing. I'm a reactor. I'm one that with you and that's going to react to things that happens. But yeah, I don't believe in being spontaneous at all. And so that's what I mean when I say I will orchestrate something.
Reggie Wright Jr., the head of security for Right Way Security and Death Row, organized the personnel to plan the hit, and I believe police officers were a big part of the hit.
You know, if I want somebody to get slapped or something like that, we're going to put a plan together. You'll never get me being emotional like a bitch and spontaneous and taking penitentiary chances. No. You probably can slap me. And I always said, you slap me, you might get away with slapping me right then. But trust me, you're going to pay for that slap one day. And that's what I mean by that.
Now we need to check out another part of Michael Carlin's theory. Reggie Wright Jr. and the allegedly dirty cops who he and Suge Knight was bringing into the inner circle of death row.
Stay away from Reggie Wright Jr.
I'm putting cases on some of them guys, so.
He is working with the feds.
Where are Biggie and Tupac?
As Denzel Washington said, I'm putting cases on.
You got a lot to cover up, y'all.
Freudian slip.
You got a lot to cover up.
We spoke to two head investigators on Tupac's murder. Here are their theories of the event.
I won't deny it, I'm a straight ride.
September 7th, 1996, Tupac Shakur, along with his associates from Death Row Records, are leaving a Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Hotel and Casino when they see Orlando Anderson, a known Southside Crip from Los Angeles. In this video from inside the MGM, Shakur, along with Suge Knight, can be seen kicking and stomping Anderson. Just after 11 p.m., Tupac, Suge Knight, and the rest of their entourage of about 6 cars were headed to a club. They were stopped here at the intersection of Koval and Flamingo. A white Cadillac pulled up alongside Knight's BMW and opened fire. Shakur was sitting in the passenger side and was hit multiple times. This is the last photo taken of Shakur the night of the shooting. He died 5 days later at UMC at the age of 25. 6 months later in Los Angeles, East Coast rapper Christopher Wallace, otherwise known as Notorious B.I.G., is gunned down leaving a party. LAPD detective Russell Poole is assigned the case and found the murder of Shakur and Wallace were connected.
Russell Poole was investigating this crime, and it kept leading to off-duty police officers. And he kept being told by management at the LA, hey, stop, you're investigating.
Poole was eventually taken off the case. He quit the force and sued the LAPD. Author Michael Carlin helped Poole publish multiple books about his findings.
I'm just calling to tell you, look over your shoulder.
And says Poole never stopped working on the murders.
Dave Demersion is the senior ADA at the district attorney's office. We started having these meetings, and Dave was like, I'm still just not interested, not feeling this case. We doubled our efforts. We came up with 45 Tupac murder facts. We handed that to him, and finally he said, I am very interested in this case now.
In September 2015, 19 years after Shakur's murder, Poole scores a meeting with investigators.
A man takes 2 billion heartbeats, and the last 2,000 of his heartbeats are in a meeting with the sheriffs talking about sheriff corruption, and he passes away in the meeting. I mean, it defies logic.
Carlin says Poole had uncovered evidence that those inside Death Row Records planned to kill Suge Knight to take over the label. Shakur was also a target because, according to Poole, he was planning to leave the label and take hundreds of unreleased songs with him. FBI documents and former LAPD officers confirmed Death Row Records employed multiple officers who worked security.
The motive is Death Row Records. Death Row Records was worth $500 million. And the reality is, cops were involved in the murder of Tupac. The reason this hasn't been solved is because it leads back to cops.
Fox 5 tried to contact the former Compton police officer who took over Death Row Records after the murder. He did not respond.
Profile unsolved cases
Right here in Las Vegas. Exactly.
Incredible. Great work, Cindy.
Yes, Cindy. Thank you.
Several informants told investigators the white Cadillac used in the shooting of Tupac was rented. However, police were never able to track down the car. We also reached out to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. They told us they couldn't comment because the investigation into the death of Tupac Shakur is still ongoing. Greg Kading, the LAPD officer we spoke to for this piece, has published a book and has a documentary about his findings. He was taken off the investigation after an internal review found him guilty of altering witness statements.
And you are on their side. You're buddies with all of them, and you're protecting them. And why
You're
can't
right.
there just be
You're
an
absolutely
investigation?
right. Greg, what were you doing in 1996? Wait a second. Are we really going to get into, what were you doing the night of Tupac Shakur's murder?
So, guys.
What's going on?
Greg Kading is out. His lawyer won't let him do it, so Greg Kading is out. His lawyer won't let him do it, so...
Hey, Greg, where were you the night Tupac Shakur was murdered?
I have absolutely no idea.
We've been waiting around for Kading all day, and
and now
he's not
he's a
coming.
no-show.
Really, I wanted to talk to him because there's so much to ask him.
Yeah.
Greg Kading has no credibility on this subject matter. He became a task force member on the Biggie case 10 years after the fact. Kading left the LAPD in disgrace for his false testimony on a federal murder and racketeering case, United States versus George Toros Ramos, CR 06-656A SV W. Guilty verdicts were overturned in part due to Kading's testimony. He said LAPD cleared him of those charges, but that is not entirely true. Kading also had some help writing his book from disgraced LA Times reporter Chuck Phillips. Kading forget there were actual eyewitnesses to the Biggie killing. He spends a lot of time talking about things he knows nothing about. This is a desperate attempt for Kading to salvage his reputation. Suge Knight is a suspect, but not for the reasons Kading talks about. In closing, Kading never attempted to interview me regarding the Biggie investigation. He makes a lot of false statements about me and my part in the investigation. Retired LAPD homicide detective Russell Poole.
I used a racial term. Like you said, I'm not a racist.
Reggie Wright Jr., the head of security for Right Way Security and Death Row, organized the personnel to plan the hit, and I believe police officers were a big part of the hit.
He documented evidence that the CIA participated in cocaine distribution to Los Angeles gangs.
We've got all the DEA undercover tapes, we've got the FBI reports, we've got the court records, and they're all posted for people to see.
I, too, was deeply disturbed by the allegations as reported in the San Jose Mercury News in August of 1996, of the Central Intelligence Agency's involvement in the introduction, financing, and distribution of crack cocaine
to Los Angeles gangs.
I will tell you, Director Deutsch, as a former Los Angeles police narcotics detective, that the agency has dealt drugs throughout this country for a long time.
It was selling cocaine in Los Angeles for the most part, but in other areas of the country as well, to the gangs, to the Crips and Bloods.
Castillo had documented that the CIA directed this drug trafficking operation out of 2 hangars using Contra Supply Network as a route for shipping drugs into the United States.
So I got up and I said in Spanish to the comandantes, and they had some of their people from the Attorney General's office. I said, we think that all of you are corrupt. And they just looked at me. And I said in Spanish, and you think that all of us are stupid. And they began laughing. Then the hands started going up. Yeah, and we've got more dead Mexican soldiers and dead Mexican policemen, good honest ones, than you do. And we know who the crooks are in this room. But you don't know who the crooks are on your side. But we're not going to tell you unless you do something about it. That's how we began. And Mr. Avell is listening to beepers and things like that. He didn't know what to do.
Narcotics is a very dirty, dirty business. I've only recently become aware of a narcotics trafficking scheme that's been going on since the mid-90s, whereby the LVMPD, the LAPD, and the LASD are all complicit. They're all involved in it. It emanates out of Compton, California. Okay. Now, again, I'm just the messenger. How many people know this? I mean, I'm definitely not right up there in the food chain. I'm way down here. And I learn about this. It's because everybody else has got a gag order on them.
Director Deutsch, I will refer you to 3 specific agency operations known as Amadeus, Pegasus, and Watchtower. I have Watchtower documents heavily redacted by the agency. I was personally exposed to CIA operations and recruited by CIA personnel who attempted to recruit me.
And then Calderoni, without getting into another big story, told us how he laundered $6 million in one day through Caesar's Palace, legally. Because he said your president, Reagan, and Laxalt, the senator, exempted the biggest bank in America, which is called Las Vegas. So we bring the money there, they wash it, we give them a fee, and it goes to the banks in Switzerland. And what are you going to do about it?
Police corruption cannot exist. Cannot exist unless it is condoned and tolerated by upper police management.
The investigation was stymied by the chief of police, Bernard Park.
After the meeting, Mr. Ravel says, gentlemen, to all the FBI, what we just heard is classified top secret. And I laughed. I said, you cannot classify anything that does not pertain to the national security of a country. You can't. And you cannot classify that which is embarrassing. Oh no, this gentleman, this cannot leave this room. I said, we should publish this in all the newspapers so everybody knows how this, we've got people dying out here, and we're up snatching up half a ton of marijuana, and we're all initialing it and think it's all great, and we're all heroes, and the cars are going through with black tar heroin and cocaine. Said there's no war on drugs. We're just killing people. Because when we get to the big ones, you don't want to hear about it. The big banks, and how the Federal Reserve is involved in this. Oh, I think I have a meeting now. I said there's corruption on both sides, and they'll tell us who it is. Didn't you hear it? I think I've got to catch my plane now.
Now, for those of you who don't know, the intelligence section for the LVM PD are just nothing but a bunch of thugs that do whatever the sheriff wants them to do. Doesn't matter if it's illegal or legal or unethical or immoral. Doesn't matter. I know this because I had a good friend that was in the intelligence section, and he dissuaded me from putting in a transfer to go to the intelligence section because they committed crimes every day. And it's everything from illegal wiretaps to narcotics transactions to murder to rape. You name it, whatever crime that's in the Nevada Revised Statute, they did it. And they did it under the orders and protection of the sheriff.
Greg, what were you doing in 1996?
The investigation was stymied by the chief of police, Bernard Parks.
Well, isn't this interesting? There's a whole list of things that are bubbling up, coming to the surface. Some of it is about this bankruptcy that John Hyland filed. And John Hyland filed that bankruptcy about a year ago. Something like that. And isn't it interesting that he filed that bankruptcy after he had appeared on Vlad flossing his $40,000 Death Row Records chain and emblem? And where is that listed in the bankruptcy? That right there is bankruptcy fraud. Forget about the fact that he said that his channel was worth $25,000 when it's really probably worth more like $250,000, $300,000. Now there's also videos that have been deleted off the channel. Videos, live streams that have been deleted off the channel. Where are those? Are those being held somewhere? Is that also fraud because those videos have been deleted? Somebody owns them. Does John Hyland own those videos? 1,800 videos are worth $25,000, some of which have been deleted off of the channel, some of which have been deleted off of the channel. So where are those? That's more bankruptcy fraud. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, hey, we should just let it go. Let it go. Let it go. You know, poor John. He's a victim in all of this. Let me just remind all of you of one thing. Reggie Wright Sr. said, I would get a motherfucker institutionalized if you want to know the real. He said he's not the kind of guy who's going to go do some work. He's going to scheme and he's going to put people away. He's going to put them in prison. And we've seen that he actually has worked behind the scenes to make that shit happen. And I'm going to give you an example of somebody that he targeted. He targeted former Compton Mayor Omar Bradley because Omar Bradley had the courage to stand up to the corrupt Compton police. Omar didn't want to do that. Omar did not want to do that. Omar had to do that because a gun flowed through the evidence locker, made its way out onto the streets, and was used to shoot a police officer. And the feds came crawling, looking through everything in Compton because of that gun. And where did that gun flow through? It was in the evidence locker. It was in a database saying it was in the evidence locker. And that gun made its way through death row records, and then onto the streets of Compton and Long Beach. And that's where it was used to shoot Officer Brian Watt. Now, there were 2 Compton PDs that were questioned about that gun in a deposition in the civil case. One of those was Reggie Wright Sr. The other one was Reggie Wright Jr. And that's when the gun came up about Fatal. Fatal's Glock came up. Oh, yeah, no, that I never touched. Oh, that gun. Oh, yeah, that gun. Oh, I remember that gun now. Yeah, I remember that gun. You know, it's selective memory about everything, and it's story after story after story. And Omar Jr. was texting with Reggie Wright Jr., and Reggie thought it was Senior that he was texting with. And he said, hey, I hate to see anybody locked up these days, but if you want to know the real, you should have never messed with the Compton PD. Well, here's the thing about that. The Compton Police Department would have never been shut down if it wasn't for Reggie Wright Jr., because that gun flowed from the evidence locker through death row records that Reggie was running at the time and onto the streets. And that's what led to the corrupt Compton police being shut down. And there's been a lot of scrutiny lately about the Compton Police Corruption Report, saying that we got it wrong. Well, okay, what did we get wrong? Villarreal was targeted for sure. No question about it in that. What did Villarreal do? I don't know what he did, what he didn't do. That's not the point. What didn't we get wrong? Well, there were 2,400 guns missing from the evidence locker at the corrupt Compton Police Department. That we did not get wrong. There was 96 kilos of cocaine in total that were missing from the evidence locker. That we did not get wrong. There was 55 gallons of PCP missing from the evidence locker. There were thousands of pounds of marijuana missing from the evidence locker. That we did not get wrong. That prompted an investigation. And when we talk about Reggie Wright Jr., his phone number was in Keefe D's PO book, meaning Keefe D had some kind of business relationship with Reggie Wright Jr. And that shows us there's a contact there that goes way back into the 90s. We heard from Gordon Martins about a drug ring that operates out of Compton, involving LAPD, LASD, and the Las Vegas Metro Police Department. We heard from Matt Perez that Las Vegas is the legal money laundering capital of the world, that it was made legal to launder money out of Las Vegas. You go to the casino, you pay a fee, and they wire transfer the money to your bank account anywhere in the world. And they were able to legally launder money. Calderoni, the commandant of the Federales in Juarez, Mexico, was able to legally launder money through Las Vegas casinos because the federal government made it legal to do so. We have the Gary Webb articles that talk about how Daniel Blandon was putting cocaine out for the CIA onto the streets of America to raise money for the Contras. And this goes all the way back to the Opium Wars, where China was infiltrated and opium was put out into the streets of China. That's how far back this goes. We know Air America. We know about the mafia, patrolling the docks during World War II. There has been an unholy alliance between intelligence and organized crime. That's been ongoing. And it looks like, when we look at this man who says he would institutionalize anybody that crosses him, if you want to know the real, that's what he said. We take him at his word. I've had phone calls from people that are in prison that were put there with cases that were put on them by the rights. These are evil people. They're evil people. Reggie Wright Sr., first on the scene at Orlando Anderson's murder. Looked like he'd been there for a while. When I interviewed one of the paramedics that showed up, he got there a minute after it happened, said Orlando was already dead. Bobby Ladd and Tim Brennan, oh yeah, there was a deathbed confession. Orlando said he killed Tupac and then he died. He was already dead. A minute after, before any of those people showed up to hear that confession, Orlando was dead. He was shot up so bad that he bled out and died immediately. And who was there? Reggie Wright Sr. And I spoke to somebody who was at the car wash, got their head down, said everybody was shooting at that car wash. I don't know who everybody was, but if Reggie Wright Sr. looked like he'd been there for a while, was he one of the shooters too? We don't know, but these are questions that need to be asked. And Reggie Wright Sr. is in charge of homicide at the Corrupt Compton Police Department. 275 open murders at the time Reggie Wright Sr. turns it over to the sheriffs. Only 24 case files get turned over to the sheriffs. 251 case files are purged before the handoff. And when it came down to the vote, somebody who looked amazingly similar to Omar Bradley is driving on the 91 freeway, having just left Omar Bradley's place of employment, who looks like Omar, and he gets shot and killed on the 91 freeway, an educator. And that murder is unsolved. That murder is unsolved. And who calls Omar Bradley at the time of that shooting to see if they got their man? Reggie Wright Sr. calls him. His phone rings, he answers it. Oh, Omar, is that you? Yeah, it's me. Oh, I'll call you back. What? That happened at the exact time that Gary Beverly was shot and killed on the 91 freeway, leaving Omar Bradley's place of employment. And Reggie Wright Jr. says to Omar Bradley Jr., he says, hate to see anyone locked up, but this wouldn't have happened if you hadn't gone after the Compton PD, if you hadn't shut down the Compton PD. And so they indict Omar over a bowl of oatmeal.
some golf balls. That's what they can get him on. That's it. That's what they got him on. And he had it overturned on appeal. Oh, that wasn't enough. They went after him a second time, a second trial. Everybody in America is supposed to have protection against double jeopardy, not being tried twice for the exact same crime. Not Omar Bradley, because he shut down the Corrupt Compton Police Department. The DAs came after him a second time. And they told him, hey, we know you can win this on appeal, but we will have stolen 20 years of your life. And they did. They stole 20 years of his life. They embroiled him in a bunch of bullshit. And now we're supposed to cry for poor John Hyland in his bankruptcy and just let him go. Well, he has a YouTube channel that's worth $250,000 that he put a $25,000 valuation on. We have Reggie Wright Jr. running around saying, John doesn't even own the channel. He only owns half the channel. Well, that's fraud. A year ago, John Hyland shows up on Vlad flossing his death row chain. That's worth $40,000. Where does that show up in the bankruptcy? More fraud. Here's the thing about all these guys. They are evil motherfuckers. They put people in prison. People go on Vlad, and what happens to them? You go on Vlad, you catch a case. Now, not in every case, but you know what? It's happened enough that people are starting to question whether or not they should go on Vlad. And Reggie seems very cozy with Vlad. They're buddies. This whole Blvd thing, you know, Reggie's in Blvd's PO book, and then Blvd catches a case for the murder of Tupac in a book that has an index. It's written like a deposition. It's not written like a hood book, which it was portrayed to be. It has an index. Blvd has been set up to take the fall. They had to put a nice little bow on it, and nobody believes that Blvd had anything to do with Tupac's murder. Nobody credible believes that. And we can see the Compton PD crawling around the MGM. And who saw them at the fight before? Who was a guest of Don King? Omar Bradley saw them. They were working off-duty security. I talked to an MGM security guy, an old salty dog, and he said, we hire outside contractors that are off-duty police officers that are gang people. They're gang cops. And they come here and they work off-duty for special events like Fight Night in Vegas. You got a row of 12 cars, right, whatever, and a car rolls up alongside. There's no way that could have been done without law enforcement involvement. And let's not forget Perez, Gaines. Those guys were dirty as could be. Mac, dirty as could be. And what does Mac tell us? Hey, I don't know why you guys are looking at Rampart so hard. It was going on in all of Los Angeles, at all the precincts. Drug trafficking, money laundering, murder for hire. Gordon Martins tells us that there's a special unit inside of Las Vegas Metro Police that engages in all sorts of crimes, including murder, rape. They do it all. They do whatever they're told to do. So we start to learn that the drug trafficking, my federale friend laughed at me because I was standing with him at the border and I said, on your side over there, that's where the corruption is. It's not on our side of the border. And he laughed at me. He said, who do you think we give the drugs to? We give the drugs to the cops. We give it to the sheriffs and to the police. Now, I'm not saying every cop is dirty. We have good cops like Russell Poole. We have very good cops like Russell Poole. But I'm saying that there can be a compartmentalized operation inside of law enforcement that deals drugs. It happened with Operation Big Spender. They were taken down. There's the Vikings, a gang inside of the sheriffs. There is the Rampart scandal cops, right, with the aces and eights and that whole tattoo that went on inside of Rampart. Now, they paid out $125 million in damages. But when it came time to investigate those cops for things like the Biggie murder or the Tupac murder, Bernard Parks said, no. Mac already went down for the bank robbery. We're not going to look into that. Perez went down for the stolen cocaine. We're not going to look into that. Gaines is dead. We're not going to look into that. So they stopped the investigation. And then they sent their cleanup guy, Greg Kading, to clean this all up. And that's what he is. He's a cover-up cop. And I tell you all the truth about this. If somebody is affiliated with the cops in any way, you need to really look at the information that they provide and make sure that they're really trying to get out the truth, because most likely they're not trying to get out the truth. Right? They're not trying to get out the truth. So, let's get back to Reggie Wright Jr. Mandatory minimums on their sentences. Both senior and junior should have done 5-7 years in the federal pen. Senior doesn't do any time, and Reggie gets basically a slap on the wrist. And now, this same guy who has been putting cases on people, putting innocent people in prison, is now embroiled somehow in this bankruptcy. Goes on Vlad with John Hyland, flossing John Hyland's $40,000 chain. That doesn't appear anywhere in the bankruptcy. John Hyland, in the initial bankruptcy filing, doesn't even disclose the YouTube channel. He discloses an LLC, trying to just slide it through. Let's fuck off all these creditors for whatever, 100 and some odd grand, and not put the channel on. And they're going to just slide it through. And probably would have gotten away with it. But now there's been some objections filed. The channel is worth $250,000. Then it's listed at $25,000. And magically now Reggie inserts himself as a creditor. And now Reggie's running around saying he owns half the channel. So we went from the channel not being worth anything to being worth $25,000 and John being 100% owner to John's not even the owner. And now Reggie's a creditor. That's fraudulent enough. But you add in this $40,000 piece of jewelry that's not listed anywhere. Where does it say Death Row Records chain, $40,000? But on DJ Vlad's channel, he's on there flossing his $40,000 Death Row Records chain. So where is that on the bankruptcy? There's fraud all over this. And here's what we're going to find out. We're going to find out how many district attorneys want to reach out and put their thumb on the scale to stop any prosecution from being done for this fraud that's been perpetrated on the court. We're going to find out how many U.S. attorneys want to reach out and put their thumb on the scale and try and protect John Hyland and Reggie Wright Jr. in this bankruptcy, because both of them have their hands in it. Both of them have their hands in it. Reggie gets a pension to this day for disability from being a police officer when he went and ran Death Row Records. So he's disabled and getting a check, but he's also running a $500 million a year record label. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And yet nothing ever happens to him. Slap on the wrist in the case out of Tennessee, right? Must have done some serious telling. Phil Carson recently came out and said, yeah, Reggie met with me and told me he was going to take over the record label. So Phil Carson knew about that before it happened? Michael Moore says, yep, they're out at Lake Mead, they're talking, and oh yeah, Reggie would run the record label. Sharitha's on the paper, but Reggie would run the label if something happened to Suge. And then magically something happens to Suge. He goes away, and Reggie runs the record label. And there was no difference between Death Row Records and the Compton PD after Suge Knight goes away. They ran as one and the same entity, and they hauled the wealth of Death Row Records. And the Compton PD, 251 murder books are purged. 251 murder books are purged. Only 24 murder books are handed over to the sheriffs. This whole thing stinks to high heaven. And it has the fingerprints of Reggie Wright Jr., Reggie Wright Sr. all over it. And now you have a bankruptcy that also has Reggie Wright Jr.'s fingerprints on it. And here again, nothing's going to happen. Why? Because district attorneys, U.S. attorneys, bankruptcy people who should be investigating this don't seem to care because somebody's reaching out going, no, don't look into this. And you know what? I tend to agree with Reggie. You know, I hate to see anybody go to prison. But, you know, Reggie, and I'm speaking directly to you, Reggie, you put a lot of people in prison, innocent people sitting there. Your father put a lot of people in prison, innocent people sitting there. Wanted to have an affair with the dispatcher, so you put the woman's man in prison. You put him in prison so you could get to the wife and have an affair with her, right? That's the legend of it. How many other things like that happen? We heard about when we were knocking on doors in the Bobby Finch murder. We heard about a house that was just up the street that was run by the corrupt Compton PD. And it was a drug den and a prostitution den. And people would come from L.A., all over L.A., to come do their drugs there and have sex with the women that were in that house. And it wasn't until outsiders, the feds, came in and shut it down because the corrupt Compton PD, they weren't going to shut down their drug house. They weren't going to shut down their prostitution source. How many of the massage parlors in Compton were run by the Compton PD? How many bookie outfits were run by the corrupt Compton PD? How many guns flowed through that evidence locker and were sold on the streets by the corrupt Compton PD? And how many cases were put on people because you wanted your competition in the drug trade rubbed out? You had 2 informants that were running around Compton PD like they ran the place. And one of them was a drug dealer himself. And they would suit up and go on raids, and they would have guns. These were informants, civilians, going on raids with the corrupt Compton PD. And Kevin Hackey says this is the rail that we probably should never touch, but we're going to touch it because we're not going to let any of this go. Reggie's patrol partner, Burrell, and Reggie were robbing drug dealers. And supposedly, according to Kevin Hackey, that whole thing was a payback for this, for the robbing of drug dealers. Calvin Cooksey, okay, is the one who hands the gun to law enforcement that was used in the murder of Burrell and McDonald. We just had Via Real, Arnold just gets on and talks about how shell casings were thrown away from that murder scene, from that crime scene. And probably nothing's going to happen. That won't be investigated. But Somehow that ties back to Reggie Wright Jr. was supposed to be riding with Burrell that night. McDonald stepped in, wanted to have one last night before he left the department, and he gets murdered that night. Now, I'm not saying that I know what happened, because I don't know what happened. I don't know, but it must be investigated. Shell casings that were thrown into a backyard of a house were collected by the Compton PD, and the rookie that collects those shell casings is told to throw them away, that they don't need them. Well, so that taints the crime scene. Now, if we look at Matt Perez, who says he was down in Puerto Rico and the police were working with him on certain crimes, and on the other crimes, they were trying to get information and working against them. The crimes they were working against the FBI on were murder-for-hire crimes. And the crime scenes were all tainted so that there could not be an investigation. Well, we have a crime scene that's tainted. We have Rafael Perez, who comes from Puerto Rico. Now, I'm not saying he was in law enforcement down in Puerto Rico, but, clearly has ties to that community. He comes over and he's part of Rampart. And he's a running buddy of Reggie Wright Jr. They steal the evidence out of the evidence locker in the Snoop murder trial, and that's why Snoop gets to go away. But there's a hung jury on one count, so Snoop could always be retried, and that's something that hangs over his head to this day. And that's how these guys operate. It's about power. It's about influence. It's about greed. It's about corruption. And they've got something to hold over Snoop's head. So in extreme cases, when they need Snoop to do something, they call him and go, I'm just saying, man, you could be retried for that murder, Philip Waldemariam. You had a gun in your hand, Snoop, and we made that shit go away. We made these shell casings go away, the bloody clothing go away. It was stolen out of the evidence locker. But, could always be tried again. And somebody makes a phone call, and Snoop all of a sudden wants to do whatever he's being told to do. I mean, I'm just saying that's kind of how shit works, right? That's kind of how shit works. So, in this John Hyland thing, I'm telling you, nothing is going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. But they are caught. They're caught. They're caught. They committed fraud on the bankruptcy court. They committed fraud in the bankruptcy filings. They defrauded the people they got the money from for that channel, because there's 2 years left going on that contract, and what content is going to come out now? Somebody is going to be left holding the bag. Videos have already been deleted. They have already gone missing off the channel. Where's Big Rock's interview? So there are fraud things that are happening. And Reggie, I hate to see you go to prison. I really do. Because you're just a human like anybody, except for one thing, Reggie. You put many people in prison yourself. You put people in prison yourself. You're the kind of guy, you said it, that would scheme. You'd cook up something, and you'd institutionalize a motherfucker if you want to know the real. Isn't that what you said, Reggie? So maybe because we all have compassion in our hearts, but this isn't one of those things we should be compassionate about, guys. John Hyland, Reggie Wright, you guys did this. You guys wrote those bankruptcy filings. John, you signed your name to them. Somebody probably talked you into it, just like they talked Keefe D into confessing. Just like they talked Keefe D into putting it into a book because you're going to make millions of dollars. And they put an index in the book so it could be used in a court case, which they knew was going to come. And Vegas PD, who we heard from Gordon Martins is as dirty as they come, went right along with it because they wanted to get a conviction and just clear this murder. Oh, yeah, it's cleared. Orlando did it. Keefe handed him the gun and put a nice bow on it. But everybody knows it's bullshit, guys. Everybody knows it's bullshit. And so now let's not have any compassion about you, Reggie, because you'd institutionalize me in a heartbeat if you could. You would do it. I know you would. You would institutionalize Alex in London if you could. I know you would. And there's a whole list of people you would institutionalize if you could. But your power is waning, Reggie. People are on to you. You've told on yourself so much. You've told so many lies that you don't know where the truth is. So many guns flowed through that evidence locker, and you were out there selling them. Maybe not you personally, but you know what? One of those guns flowed through Death Row Records and shot a police officer, and that's why Corrupt Compton PD was shut down. And it was shut down at a time, 251 murders. Those books were purged from the files at a time when bodies were turning up at the cemeteries and other bodies were being dug up at the cemeteries, and their remains were being mixed with the new bodies being dumped at the morgue, not the morgue, but at the cemeteries in Compton. All this stuff was happening under the corrupt Compton Police Department. And there was an investigation, and drugs were missing, guns were missing. Reggie and his father wanted to know where the raids were going to happen. Villarreal tells us the other thing, that Reggie and his father walk in with a briefcase at the stereo shop that's trafficking narcotics and laundering money, and when they walk out, they didn't have the briefcase with them. We don't know what's in the briefcase, but they took it as those guys were laundering money for Death Row Records. Death Row Records was a cutout company. Suge Knight didn't make the music business. Suge Knight knew how to use the music business. Suge Knight was focused on the music. Suge Knight was focused on the marketing. And you know how it works. Packets of cash got to be handed to people to get it played. Packets of cash got to be handed to people to get it pressed. Packets of cash got to be handed to people to get awards. Packets of cash is how the music industry has functioned since its inception. And Suge Knight didn't create that. He just knew how to use it. He knew how to play that like a fiddle. And we ended up with some of the most iconic music in the history of the world. Well, I've rambled on, but this bankruptcy, it's really something. I'm going to release a document today about it. You'll see it in the comments section. Not in the comments, but, in the notes. So anybody who wants to look at this document or any of the other bankruptcy documents, you can take a look at them. I'm not making this stuff up. They put their names on it, John Hyland especially, and he signed saying, there was no channel, then there was a channel, then the channel's worth $25,000. The Death Row chain, where's that listed? That was a year ago. He was on Vlad talking about that. Yeah, this stuff's all bubbling up, guys. And there's not anything anybody can do to stop the truth from coming out.
We know that David Mack and the other dude with the people they put down, because they was outside the Peterson Museum after the whole shit went down.
Greg Kading, the LAPD officer we spoke to for this piece, has published a book and has a documentary about his findings. He was taken off the investigation after an internal review found him guilty of altering witness statements.
Kading should be brought up on charges for falsifying evidence.
Hey, Sharita, you that's what my friend want me on the phone now. Be nice.
No, it's all, that was my friend too. That was my friend
That's still your friend.
That's my friend too.
And you are on their side. You're buddies with all of them, and you're protecting them. And why can't there just be an investigation?
Right.
So guys,
What's going on?
Greg Kading is out. His lawyer won't let him do it, so
we've been waiting around for Kading all day, and
and now
he's not
he's a
coming.
no-show.
Really, I wanted to talk to him because there's so much to ask him.
Yeah.
If it wasn't me, I would have liked the whole scene too. But my friend knew that what was portrayed in that movie, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not even going down Kevin's line. I'm talking about Sharitha Knight. You knew for a fact that was not said in that living room.
Everywhere, big business. If you want to be successful, you want to be like Trump.
Where are Biggie and Tupac?
You got a lot to cover up, y'all.
Freudian slip.
You got a lot to cover up. You know, we got a lot to cover up.
About 2 weeks after that, I was contacted by Reggie to go over to Santa Monica Police Department to pick up this firearm.
Hackey says he first showed the handgun to his FBI handlers and then turned it over to Reggie Wright Jr.
The common denominator on both of those is Reggie.
A month later in Las Vegas, investigators say it was a .40 Glock handgun that killed Tupac Shakur. Hackey believes the murder weapon was the same gun he gave Reggie Wright Jr.
I believe it is.
What up, Ball First family? How y'all doing? Hey, John, you got a lot to cover up, y'all. You know, we got a lot to cover up.
Reggie knows. I know he does. Because he said some things that are weird. I said, dang, man, that's pretty sad. I said, financially, that's going to fuck some shit up. And he goes, we ain't going to be hurt for nothing.
Puffy was going up the stairs, and he said, I don't care if Tupac died, I don't care if Biggie gotta die, and I don't care if Suge gotta go to prison for the rest of his life.
We got a confession letter on how everything went down and who's responsible.
Now, getting back to Russell was following in the footsteps of his dad, and he was able to work through the LAPD and have all the things that had to be done within the LAPD. He certainly knew the streets very well, and circumstances in his case were far more tragic because he was killed in the line of duty.
Hold your head on repeat. Listen to the beat. Again and again in my playpen till Tupac appeared to me. Finally I see. How do we keep the music playing with these devils betraying? Rap games, ghost, hocus pocus flows, exposing my foes and their John Does. Mad respect, Russell Poole detect, murders checked. Now rest your head, bless the dead, while the message spreads. Machiavelli said, my killers have not yet bled.
They got to be sorry for what they did. Like I said, I had two of the toughest guys for him, and Reggie pulled them off of me. And after it happened, I told him to send 5 guys from the club to there, and they never said nobody.
Suge was set up.
I'm like, cuz, you going to Vegas? You going to Vegas, cuz? They finna try to do something to me.
I mean, murder is pretty simple. The first person you go after is the spouse.
Perez and them was all involved. They were trying to kill me too, but see, because Perez and Reg was good friends, and Perez and Sharitha and Reg is great friends, and so all those three together was trying to plot.
Why would I want a paper trail when I never brought him around nowhere? So if I'm gonna hide him in secret, you think I'm gonna let somebody catch a paper trail? They were paid cash by Snoop.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
It was a murder for hire hit.
If it was an actual shooting in Vegas, it's on camera in Vegas.
There's witnesses that said they gave no sex to kill me. So I knew it was cameras everywhere in Vegas because I went to UNLV.
All of the corners in Vegas was equipped with cameras.
Those guys, if you go back and watch the film, they was already stalking Pac, watching him. So that just tipped the iceberg when something happened. But there was a plan already to do something to him.
How come Reggie is Suge's bodyguard and he wasn't with Suge?
We went to Las Vegas Metro in '97. After Biggie was killed, I think there's got to be a connection between the two. The politicians said they don't want to solve it, so they told the investigators, put it up on the shelf. I'm quite sure they saw the first one, they saw the second one, because it's the same circle of people.
You got a lot to cover up, y'all.
Freudian slip.
You got a lot to cover up.
Orlando wasn't even the shooter, you know? He was actually a good kid, too, you know?
The same guy that told them, Orlando Anderson, told them that Biggie got killed by the Southside Crips.
Technically, nobody knew about the whole thing.
No, let me just say that. No, it wasn't the discrepancy. The discrepancy is people say I called names. I didn't call names. I didn't say it was Orlando, Keefe, and all of them.
I had gotten all kind of intelligence from my informants an hour after the shooting went down. He called me and started telling me, hey, man, you know, there was Orlando and them behind this. They got in a fight because they saw the chain, saw Orlando and all that. He says, but it's them.
I didn't know about the beatdown until a couple of days later.
Trickery, witchery, foolery, flop, plot to take out Suge and Pac. Traffic stop starts the clock. Collusion of industry, street, and cop.
LA had tricked Vegas to have they police and they people out there during that time. Some gang initiative or whatever.
Filmmaker takes one last shot. 60 seconds after, no more laughter. Half-dead whips out Fatal's Glock. Pop, pop, pop. Pop, pop, pop. Quite the head turner, they's dad came over Nate's burner. Got him on Porky Squawker, surviving a real shocker. Fat ass said, we got a lot to cover up, y'all, and that's what's up. Stripped to straps, unloaded gats, Buntry shot back. 3 men in the caddy, just smoked a fatty, but it wasn't Sugar Daddy.
Supposedly there's a hit on Suge.
Wounds are life-threatening, but serious, not in critical condition at this time. And the person, as you are already aware, who was the passenger in this vehicle, is a known rap performer by the name of Tupac Shakur.
All the traffic lights, all the cameras, there's no way possible anybody should got away with that.
With Tupac, I still got a 45 bullet inched in my skull.
We've been informed that doctors have told the family members that they expect the rap star to once again recover from his injuries.
They know who was going on behind all that stuff, you know? How much would it cost to get rid of Suge? They said, what you mean by get rid of him? He said, kill him.
They put a hit on Suge.
Reggie's dad told me that. Well, he said, Michael, if anything happened to Suge, this is what he told me. Anything happened to Suge, Reggie would run the majority of the company.
It's the same people, same circle of people. Have nothing to do with me, you know.
Terita's on the paper.
Oh yeah.
And then you gonna sit here and say,
who is your biggest defender on Terita?
Fuck Suge. And what Suge said. That's how I feel.
Yeah, Reggie would carry most of the burden.
It's tough for me because they want the ownership of my company.
Hey, John, you got a lot to cover up, y'all.
Doctor said Pac's on the mend.
We tried to form some security detail, at least around the floor, around his room, because they had him on the first floor.
Surrounded by friends. Foes called in to make kin spin, finish him off.
We were pissed off. I'm like, this is an assassination attempt, right? And y'all got him on the first floor near a window.
Pac shook the bed, for his life he pled.
By the time I got there, remember I was coming from LA. So by the time I got there, he had tubes in his throat, in his nose, in his mouth. So he ain't talk to me, not verbally. He was conscious. He was trying to talk. He did want to talk, but he didn't actually verbalize any words. Always, that's gonna be one of the biggest mysteries in my life, because he was trying to tell me something. He was trying so hard. He was shaking the bed. He was looking at me, with his big old eyes, and I know he was trying to tell me something, but I don't know.
IVs to the vein go straight to the brain. Poison would ease his pain. It only took a drop to make his heart stop. D.O.G. Scorsese created the distraction. Lulled protectors in action for the final transaction.
The head of gangs and homicide from the Compton PD is Reggie Wright Sr.
and the head of security at death row is Reggie Wright Jr.
The vice president on TV talking about taking my record off the shelves. Police, you know, every time they see me, they think I'm a cop killer.
It was an assassination attempt on Suge in Las Vegas, who would have everything to gain. Tupac and the other artists on death row, it turned to jealousy, and from jealousy to hate.
I don't know what kind of next tail he had, but he had, the motherfucker could go, that whatever it was hitting him all the way from what was going on from Vegas.
I could have jumped out on his ass in Vegas, but it was killing me. But Snoop was like, hold on, don't fuck this up.
They was like, we could hear the shit, and then he started getting calls and shit, and they was telling him that Tupac got shot.
He the only one knows the reason why Tupac's dead, more than me. I was in the car with him.
And I was told it was an operation. It was a planned assassination.
How come Reggie is Suge's bodyguard and he wasn't with Suge?
He wanted to be Suge Knight so bad.
Where stuff really come from, it come from because they want the ownership of my company.
Because I feel like the same people that was trying to kill Pop was trying to kill Suge. You know what I'm saying? Them bullets was coming for everything in that car.
And if I do that, I'll be putting handcuffs on Snoop.
Police did not follow up on the most basic lead.
Just happened to have officers in the right spot at the right time, were able to radio ahead.
The cops that they trying to connect to death row were never hired on death row.
He had no relationship with any police officers.
When I got shot, it was 37 cameras.
All the artists at death row was willing to come with me.
There's other rappers who wanted Suge taken out.
Yo, it was so much corruption in LAPD. If they would have solved big case, LAPD would have been shut down.
I'm scared of no one.
My pitch was to the record labels and to the company was to have police officers that could be good witnesses and for the inmates.
You crooked ass cop.
I didn't need to take from niggas. I was institutionalized, motherfucker. If I tell threatened by anybody, you want to know the real. Nigga would have went to jail for a long time fucking with me.
Get everything you deserve.
Perez and Sarita and Reg is great friends, and so all those three together was trying to plot.
You always say those are Reggie people.
Suge didn't let none of my security ride with me, because I feel like they finna try to do something to me.
Some guys in these ex-cops who work off-duty for
Police corruption cannot exist. Cannot exist unless it is condoned and tolerated by upper police management.
Greg Kading is out. His lawyer won't let him do it.
You crooked ass cop.
Las Vegas PD is given a copy of the confession letter. They do absolutely nothing with it.
Could it be that the police department had something to do with Tupac's murder?
Coroner's hearse, idols nearby, a dear mama goodbye. Rushed autopsy, quick cremation, police celebrations. Enemies snicker, Haitian bootlicker. We the people mourn, hearts are torn, bulk of the nation, radio stations, next generations.
And that's what happened. Our lives was in jeopardy.
In the hospital there, something wasn't right.
You know, situations was, me and Pac had a little falling out a day or two before that in New York.
And you don't take no ass with them like that unless something's up. Unless the goose is cooked.
Who do you think killed Tupac?
I believe Orlando Anderson killed Tupac.
Are Sharitha and Reggie Wright Jr. telling the truth? Michael Carlin doesn't think so.
Orlando wasn't even a shooter, He was actually a good kid, too, No, Orlando Anderson, here he is, the only Southside Crip standing in a casino. He was planetary.
Wow, the last time I saw him, he was laying in the bed, holding on to his last breath.
Yeah, John, we got a lot to cover up.
Sold cops throw shade and blame, fill the frame. Orlando's a throwaway patsy, denies the murder flatly. It's a cover-up, a chaos merchant's cover-up. Can't stop the truth from bubbling up. This shit's a cover-up.
Nobody cared about Pac having the right amount of security at all, period.
No one cared.
It was not mentioned at all.
No one cared. And every time I ask Reggie, he gets really defensive. Told you in the hospital there, something wasn't right.
Interfering with the Vegas case. He's a lieutenant in Compton, LAPD, whatever. Interfering with the Vegas case.
Jimmy is close personal friends with Reggie Wright Sr.
Because Pop, that weekend before he went, was talking about pulling away from the labels and starting their own.
What me and Biggie want to do is take control of distribution of rap music. I said, oh boy, do you know what you're going up against? Do you understand the organized criminal networks you're going up against and the two major ethnic groups that run it? He said, yeah, we do. I said, well, you and Biggie can't do no shit like this. He said, we're not alone. We are organizing other young rappers.
And let's go and try to be a distributor on our own. At that time, it was 6 majors, and he was trying to be number 7. I remember he was talking about calling it Lucky 7.
Said, if you control distribution, you can let them have their labels, you can give them anything else they want, but control distribution. From there, you control the industry.
And we don't want that, man. It's enough brothers out here dying already.
Yeah, John, y'all got a lot to cover up. Y'all motherfuckers got Pac. Do y'all know how much that hurts our hearts?
Quail made you famous, your voice made you dangerous. Victim of jealousy, pour out your Hennessy. Death is calling me.
Stay away from Reggie Wright Jr. He is working with the feds.
In seconds, Biggie Smalls was dead, shot like Tupac in the passenger seat. According to the police, no random event, but a well-executed hit by a still unknown assailant.
What's the hateful rage for? Oh, 'cause you killed? 'Cause you killed Biggie? Well, if I did, wouldn't it make you supposed to love me even more if you love Tupac? Anybody that ever put their hands on me, I'll tell you, might not get you that day, but you're gonna get got.
Those were the various smuggling routes that the ring used to get the cocaine into the country and to get the money, some of the money back out of the country. And it depending on the year and depending on the how intense the police scrutiny was, which wasn't very for the most part. They would just fly the stuff in suitcases.